Hello, BookTube. This is a video for Audio Escapades, and where I'm going to show you a few books. Some of them are starter books, and some sort of next level. I don't have that many books for radio and old time radio, but I've got some interesting stuff. So I'll show you about, I guess, about half of what I've got. I've got stuff sort of spread over, but most of the other stuff I think are quite academic. I picked them up over the last or where they were sent to me in the last 3 or 4 years. Um, we'll start because I'm in England, so we're going to start with the UK. And the first one here is a history of Radio 4 on BBC. It's Oxford University Press. It's Life on Air, History of Radio 4 by David Hendy. I paid £2 for that. And it was published, as I say, Oxford University Press in 2007. And it's sort of a recent history, but Radio 4 plays a lot of good stuff, and have produced a lot of premium drama and comedy. Since its launch in 1967, Radio 4 has inspired fierce loyalty and passionate disputes both with the BBC and with its listeners. In this first major behind-the-scenes account of the station's history, David Hendy draws on privileged access to the BBC archives and personnel to tell the extraordinary stories of programs that have become institutions and of the station's battle for its own survival. It's quite long. I have not read it from cover to cover. I've only dipped in and read little sections at various times. It is something I'd like to read fully. It's almost 500 pages with the index. And there's also a number of other there's dozens actually, but on specific shows that are on the BBC and so forth. This one's a little more general, and I picked this up used bookshop. A World in Your Ear, The Broadcasting of an Era, 1923 to 1964. That is sort of my time period. By Robert Wood and forward by Robert Dougal. A World in Your Ear recounts the memories of the man who broadcast a whole era of British history. The General Strike, the Crystal Palace fire, the abdication, the coronations of 1937 and 1953, Chamberlain's return from Munich, Churchill's wartime speeches, and all these were brought into every home via the BBC outside broadcast microphones and later cameras of Robert Wood. So it's a memoir of him. I have not read this, but I do like memoirs to begin with, and it looks pretty good. I have leafed through and read little sections on certain periods, especially the General Strike and so forth, which was interesting. Let me tell you about the publication of it. That might be helpful. Oh, big £1 I paid for it. It's Macmillan, and it was published in 1979. Now, the next set is, I'm missing one of the volumes. I'm missing the 5th volume of this. It is extremely expensive. It costs it costs probably about almost 5 times as much as the first 4 volumes that I paid for them. But it's a magnificent history. It is the history of broadcasting in the United Kingdom. Volume 1, The Birth of Broadcasting, Asa Briggs, Oxford University Press. This is the shortest volume, and it is about 400 and some pages. It's got foldouts. many of them. And this is the first part of the projected 3 or 4 volume history. Well, actually, it turned out to be 5. Of broadcasting in the United Kingdom. The whole work is designed as an authoritative account of the rise of broadcasting in this country up to the passing of the Independent Television Act in 1955 and the end of the BBC monopoly. Though naturally largely concerned with the BBC, it will be a general history of broadcasting, not simply as an institutional history of the BBC, and will briefly sketch the background of wireless developments in other parts of the world. The birth of broadcasting covers early amateur experiments in wireless telephony in America and in England, the pioneer days at Riddle in Essex and elsewhere, and the coming of organized broadcasting and its rapid growth during the first 4 years of the BBC's existence as a private company before it became a public corporation in January 1927. It's by Asa Briggs. This was published in 1961. This one, it's dedicated to Lord Reith, the Reith lectures. I got to figure out somewhere to put this. There, will be fine. Volume 2 is much more substantial. The Golden Age of Wireless. And this is 1965, and it clocks in at 600, and well, basically 700 pages. And again, lots of foldouts. This is the second part of the projected 4-volume history. Yeah, originally 4 volumes. Of broadcasting in the United Kingdom. The whole work is designed as an authoritative account of the rise of broadcasting in the country up to the passing of the Independent Television Act. Same spiel. It's massive. This is obviously not a beginner's guide, really, unless you're really interested in broadcasting in the United Kingdom. The War of Words, Volume 3. This one's 800 pages long. Third part. This volume covering the period from 1939 to 1945 and concerned not only with the impact of the Second World War on the structure, organization, and programs of the BBC itself. A fascinating story. It deals directly with the role of the BBC outside as well as inside Britain within the context of the general political and military history of the war. An exciting, complicated, sometimes controversial role, strangely neglected by historians. This is 1970. And Volume 4, which originally that was the complete one, is Sound and Vision, also by Asa Briggs. And let's see here. More than an institutional history, one long chapter deals with the changing arts and techniques of broadcasting news and the views, politics, drama, features, variety, music, religion, education, and sport. It describes a pattern of broadcasting and a society and culture already remote from our own. At every point, the main contours of society and culture are explored. It ends with the first night of competitive television, and with contemporary assessments of the likely impact of television on the sound broadcasting and other media. So this it was published in 1979. This, as you can tell, I have not read these. They are something that I do want to read eventually. So yeah, it's in the mid 50s. This goes up to. So the 5th volume goes. I thought it was from the 60s up, but it must be like late 50s and up to sort of 80s or 90s, I think. Now, there is a comparable sort of set for US, and now we'll switch to US sort of radio. I picked this up very cheap. It's volume 1. It's basically the counterpart of that. It's the history of broadcasting in the United States. It's much slimmer. Uh, this is volume 1 to 1933. I think there's 4 volumes as well, or 3 in a way. There's at least 3. Eric Barnow, a well-respected name in the history of radio and media. This is Oxford University Press, 1966, and it clocks in at 300 some pages. I'd like to get the rest, but again, I picked this up very cheap. I'm not sure exactly how much. It's without the dust jacket, but I was fine with that. Okay, those are sort of the technical stuff. Now we get into some other general ones that are very interesting. This is Points on the Dial, Golden Age Radio Beyond the Networks. The Golden Age of radio is often recalled as a time when the medium unified the nation, when families gathered round the radios in homes across the country to listen to live, commercially sponsored network broadcasts. Let me start that again. The golden age of radio is often recalled as a time when the medium unified the nation, when families gathered round the radios in homes across the country and listened to live, commercially sponsored network broadcasts. In Points on the Dial, Alexander Rousseau revises our understanding of radio's past by revealing the hidden histories of production, distribution, and reception practices during this era, which extended from the 1920s to the 1950s. Rousseau brings to light a tiered broadcasting system with intermingling but distinct national, regional, and local programming forms, sponsorship patterns, and methods of program distribution. Examining a wide range of practices included regional networking, sound on disc transcription, and the use of station representative spot advertising and programming aimed at homes and with several radios. He not only recasts our understanding of the relationship between national networks and local stations, but also charts the development of new ways of listening, often distractedly rather than attentively. That set the stage for radio in the second half of the 20th century. Sorry, I'm blaming it on the heat here. But yeah, this one is very, very good. That is published by Duke University Press. It was published in 2010. Another general one. This is Thrilling Days of Yesteryears, The Golden Age of Radio by John Rayburn. And this has sort of interviews and so forth from a number of people. And it's from an interesting publisher called Bear Manor Media, who deal with a lot of old-time radio stuff, fringe stuff, like film, TV material. And this one is radio was the number one form of family entertainment for a quarter century. In a dazzling step back in time, veteran broadcaster John Rayburn talks about the fantastic era of broadcasting and fascinating interviews with a sterling list of guests, including Durward Kirby, Gary Moorshaw, Parley Bear, original Chester on radio's Gunsmoke, Arthur Anderson, Let's Pretend, Carl Quinn, Irish singer on Arthur Godfrey, Ezra Stone, Henry Aldrich, Minnie Pearl, Grand Ole Opera, Fred Foy, announcer on The Lone Ranger, Gail Gordon, I Love Lucy, and Our Miss Brooks, Charles Corley, Adam, Andy, and Amos and Andy, or Andy of Amos and Andy, Hyman Brown, Inner Sanctum, Grand Central Station, Chet Luck, Lum of Lum and Abner, Frankie Carley, big band leader. There are great stories about Red Skelton, Jack Armstrong, Lights Out, Quiz Kids, Little Orphan Annie, Jimmy Durante, Time Marches On, Hindenburg Disaster, President Roosevelt's December 8th, 1941 declaration of war against Japan, and many more. So this is another very good one. Now, there are tons and tons of, well, actually, before I get that, I can't sort of get it now. There's one volume by Leonard Maltin. If you want just one volume to talk about sort of the golden age of radio, it's the volume by Leonard Maltin. I think it's called Golden Age of Radio. Leonard Maltin. He's the one that puts out the film guides every year. If he still does them, I'm not sure. But it's a really good book. He does talk about himself a little bit, but he's a very good writer, so it is worth getting. Now, the next thing I wanted to look at was a few books on specific shows, or, basically, specific shows. And this is The Martian Chronic, The Martians Are Coming, The True Story of Orson Welles' 1938 Panic Broadcast. It's a slim book, but it's extremely good, extremely good. It is published at Amberley. It's a true story. It says published 2011, and it gives a general sort of history of sort of radio and what was happening at the time. And it's the War of the Worlds that we're talking about in this. And we will be looking, Mark and I, for Audio Escapades, will be looking at the Martian, the War of the Worlds at some point. Just a fabulous back cover. Another one that's good and is The Radio Adventures of Sax Rohmer, Fu Manchu, by Martin Grams Jr., who is well known for radio history. And this is Bear Manor Media again, and this was published this year, 2022. And here's an older one that I picked up. It's an ex-library, but it's Radio's Captain Midnight, a wartime biography of the radio show Captain Midnight. It was make-believe, of course, but to thousands of World War II radio listeners, from children to U.S. Army Corps flight crews, he was an American hero. Using details and events from the 15-minute serial scripts, Stephen A. Callis has constructed a biography of the great wartime aviator concerning his origins and adventures. Concluding the work are thorough appendices and that discuss secret squadron equipment, aircraft and rocketry, cryptography, and code cracking in the series, and Captain Midnight's portrayal in books, radio, television, serials, comics, and newspaper strips. And it's written by Stephen A. Callis Jr. and it's published by McFarlane and Company. And I'm looking for a date here, if it gives me it. 2000. And here's something else. This is a fabulous thing. The Marx Brothers in the 30s did a radio show called Flywheel, Shyster, and Flywheel. Now, there are no recordings of this series left. But at some point, the scripts, sort of, or partial scripts, showed up. And they were adapted, added to, and made full scripts, and produced by the BBC. And they had actors playing Groucho, all of them. See what it says. Yeah, it says it was show broadcast on NBC Radio in 32 to 33 as part of its newly launched 5-star theater series. And these are the scripts that they used for this. You can still find this, or at least on the BBC radio. They usually play them, and they are fabulous. The ones that are doing it are very, very good. They mimic the Marx Brothers very, very well. And just even reading this is just fabulous. I don't know how many hours I've spent perusing that, reading sections, and just giggling to myself. Let me move some of these out of the way here. Now, here we get into some specialized material, or at least this one here. I've only got volume 1 of it. I think there's 3 or 4 volumes for the New York, and I think there's a Chicago and an LA series as well. It's quite a hefty book. It's Bear Manor Media again, and it's called the New York Old Time Radio Schedule Book. And this is volume 1, 1929 to 1937 by Keith D. Lee. Now, you ask, what is a schedule book? Well, that's exactly what it is. You can look up a specific station and evening spring 1931 on a Saturday at 6 p.m. on the CBS at 6 p.m. Saturday, 10 Housing's Sportslands. And then the other channels, it gives you what shows were being played at those times in New York. And it's 500 pages of this, and there's many other volumes. They are very cool. They are very cool because it's interesting to see what was being played, and you can actually find some of the material and actually play it. Like, if you're lucky, you can get everything and do an evening, that happened like almost 100 years ago. Now, here's a 2-volume set with Orson on the cover, and it's Radio Drama, a comprehensive chronicle of American network programs, 1932 to 1962. These are excellent volumes. And you might say, well, yeah, I can find this stuff on the internet. Well, yes and no. There's a lot of false information out there and incomplete information. See, this will give you a little paragraph or two of the name of the show, and like the Adventures of Sam Spade, and this and it tells when it was played, and all the details, the who worked on it and everything like that. Plus, then gives you the exact date, the name of the episodes, and the exact date that they were aired. And these are extremely good. And there are other ones for other genres as well. I've only been able to get these, and this is McFarlane, because they are pricey. I got these on a very discount. This was published in 2000 by Martin Grams Jr., the same as the other one, the other book. Now, I've only got 4 volumes, I think, of this set. It is it's basically archive of the airways. There are many dictionaries, and there's even one. No, I can't get it. Of sort of shows and little information. There's all sorts of stuff. I've got ones that are sort of women on the radio, and those types of things. This is it was a 10-volume set, so it's quite big, and it literally is everything. It's names, little biographies, names of the shows, just everything you would want to know. And again, you might say, well, just look at Wikipedia. Wikipedia doesn't have a lot of this information there, because these are small people that might have, worked on shows and just never, on a few shows and never worked, and never got much airplay, so they did a little bit of work, and then they just moved on to something else. I'm just looking under B here, just out of curiosity. I don't know if I've ever done this. must have did this before looking for. Um, well, you got okay, Ray Bloch, which I think is. No, I don't know if it's any relation. Uh, sorry, I'm just looking here to see. Sadly, there's no Louise Brooks in here because she did do soap operas for a little while. So it's not perfect. It's not going to have every single person that ever worked in old time radio, but it's probably the best uh, series of books, and that's 4 volumes that I have. So yeah, that's sort of it. Yeah, if there's any other questions that you have, or if you have any suggestions for books, because I know you could have a whole library of this material, and it's never ending, and there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of academic material. Like I've got some that talks about the Depression era, 1930s America and radio, and I even have a volume here. I don't know where it is. Oh, there it is. If I can get it without knocking anything down. This was given to me. Radio and the Gendered Soundscape. Women and Broadcasting in Argentina and Uruguay. 1930 to 1950. This was given to me. It's not something I would have searched out. But, there is tons of this kind of stuff. This happens to be, well, it says damaged copy, but it's Cambridge University, but I think it's just a shop return. Christine Eric, University of Louisiana, but Cambridge University Press, 2015. So it's a little monograph. And there's, like I say, there's all sorts of material like this. You could have tens of thousands of books, I think, on radio. There's specialist and non-specialist. And what we'll do is, with our series, we'll try to navigate some of this material, and specifically for shows or for the genre that the shows fit under. And it's just going to be sort of, dipping a toe in most of this stuff, because there is so much material out there. And there's probably, I don't know, there could be 100,000 or several 100,000 radio shows that are still available. A good 100,000 anyway, radio shows that are still available, and that's not even all of them. So just think, like they've been broadcasting radio since like the 20s. So there's 100 years of radio shows, and how many radio stations were there? In the United States, Canada, all over the world. So there's tons of material out there, and it's to sort of navigate your way through it. And that's why we showed on. I'll leave a link for sort of the online resources, because the best place to go is the Old Time Radio Researchers Group, which is the best jumping off point for everything, because especially their certified series, or they call them something else now. They're ones that they've meticulously gone through to make sure they are accurately described, that they're attributed to the correct show name and the date and everything, and that they're the completest, the most complete episodes that you could find, because there is tons of stuff out there since about 1990s, late 1990s and 2000s, especially when MP3 started in. The internet was flooded with this material, and of varying quality. And I think I can't remember when the Old Time Radio Researchers group started, but they have been plodding along and doing great work. So I'll leave that link to that video. Anyway, take care, BookTube. And again, do sound out in the comments of anything that you're interested in. Thank you.